to Princesses, found him dying and desperate, offered him shelter. Now they won't let him. Thought came to him as clearly as the pain shooting through his left leg. His small scout ship lay in twisted metal pieces behind him, smoke still rising from the broken engine. 3 days ago, he had been exploring the outer rim of known space. Now he was crawling through purple grass on an alien world, leaving a trail of blood behind him. The cosmic debris field had appeared from nowhere. One moment Marcus was checking his navigation charts, the next his ship was spinning out of control. The emergency systems had barely worked long enough to get him to the surface of this strange planet, but landing safely and surviving were two very different things. Marcus stopped crawling and rolled onto his back. The sky above him was a soft green color, with 2 small moons visible even in the daylight. Beautiful, he thought. At least it was a nice place to die. His water had run out yesterday. The emergency food packets were gone too. His leg was definitely broken, and something was wrong with his ribs. Every breath hurt. The medical kit had helped at first, but the supplies were nearly finished. He closed his eyes and tried to think of Earth. His sister would never know what happened to him. The Space Exploration Agency would mark him as missing in unknown sector, and eventually forget about him. Just another explorer who went too far and never came back. A strange sound made him open his eyes. It was like music, but not quite human music. The notes were too pure, too perfect. Marcus turned his head and saw something that made him wonder if he was already dead. 2 figures were walking through the purple grass toward him. They looked almost human, but not quite. They were tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer like silver in the green sunlight. Their hair was long and moved like it was underwater, even though there was no wind. But it was their eyes that made Marcus sure he was seeing things. The eyes were large and completely blue, with no white parts at all. The 2 figures stopped a few feet away and spoke to each other in voices like singing. Marcus could not understand their words, but their tone sounded surprised. One of them knelt down next to him. She was wearing clothes that looked like they were made of liquid starlight. She reached out carefully and touched his forehead with cool fingers. Marcus tried to speak but only made a rough sound. "Please," he whispered in English, knowing they would not understand. "Help me." The 2 beings looked at each other again. There was something in their faces that seemed almost human. Curiosity, maybe, or concern. The second one pulled out a device that looked like a crystal. She pointed it at Marcus, and it started glowing. Numbers and symbols appeared in the air. Above it, Marcus had seen similar scanning devices before, but nothing this advanced. They spoke to each other again, their voices urgent now. Marcus caught one word that they repeated several times. It sounded like Teleny. He wondered if that meant human or dying or stranger. The first one made a decision. She stood up and spoke into another crystal device. Within minutes, Marcus heard a sound like thunder coming from the sky. A ship appeared above them, but it was like no ship he had ever seen. It was smooth and curved, like it had been grown instead of built. It made no sound as it landed nearby. More figures came out of the ship. These wore different clothes, more practical looking. They carried a floating stretcher that seemed to be made of light itself. They spoke quickly with the 2 who had found him. Marcus felt himself being lifted onto the strange stretcher. It was warm and seemed to adjust itself to his body. The pain in his leg became less sharp. He looked up at the 2 beings who had saved him. "Thank you," he said, even though he knew they did not understand the words. One of them leaned down and spoke to him. Her voice was gentle, musical, even though he could not understand her language. Something in her tone made him feel safe for the first time in days. The ship was even more amazing inside. The walls seemed to be alive, glowing softly with their own light. There were no hard edges anywhere. Everything curved and flowed like water. Marcus was placed in a room that felt more like being inside a large shell than a medical bay. Devices he could not identify moved around him, scanning and checking his injuries. The pain was fading rapidly. He could feel his broken ribs healing, his leg becoming stronger. This technology was hundreds of years ahead of anything humans had developed. The two beings who had found him stood nearby, watching the medical devices work. They seemed to be arguing about something in their musical language. Other crew members joined the discussion. Marcus caught more repeated words: Corvin, Zelthari, Council. One of the medical devices made a soft chimming sound. The argument stopped. Everyone looked at readings that appeared in the air. Marcus saw surprise on their faces. Then what looked like excitement. The taller of his rescuers came closer to his bed. She had a serious expression, but her large blue eyes seemed kind. She spoke slowly, carefully. Pointing to herself, Lyrale, she said. Marcus understood. That was her name. The second one did the same thing. Zephyra. Marcus pointed to himself. Marcus. Both of them repeated his name, their voices making it sound like music. Lyrale said something to the others in the room. Whatever she said made them look worried. Marcus was getting tired. The healing process was draining his energy. But before he fell asleep, he heard Lyrale and Zephyra talking quietly near his bed. Their voices were gentle, but he could hear. Concerning them, he did not know that he had just become the first human to set foot on Valdris. He did not know that Lyrale and Zephyra were princesses of a vast galactic empire. He did not know that his presence would change everything for both their worlds. All Marcus knew was that he was alive. Two strangers had found him dying and had chosen to save him. In the vast, cold universe, that simple act of kindness felt like a miracle. As he drifted off to sleep, healed and safe. Marcus had no idea that his real adventure was just beginning. Marcus woke up feeling better than he had in years. The pain in his leg was completely gone. He could breathe easily, and when he touched his ribs, there was no soreness at all. The medical technology of these people was incredible. He sat up in the strange bed that seemed to adjust itself to his movement and looked around the room. Lyrale was sitting in a chair nearby, reading something on a device that looked like flowing water. When she saw him awake, she smiled. It was the first time Marcus had seen her smile, and it made her alien face seem almost human. Marcus, she said carefully, pronouncing his name like she was tasting something new. Hello, Lyrale, he replied, trying to copy the musical way she spoke. She set down her device and came closer. From a small table, she picked up another crystal device and pointed it at him. Symbols appeared in the air between them, changing and shifting. Translator, she said in heavily accented English. The device was learning his language. Marcus felt a rush of excitement. You can understand me now? Yes, Lyrale said, though her grammar was still rough. Device learns fast. Your language is interesting, very different from ours. The door to the room opened, and Zephyra entered carrying a tray of food. The smells were completely alien, but somehow appetizing. She saw Marcus sitting up, and her face lit up with the same kind smile as her sister. Marcus awake. Zephyra said happily, "Food for you, from Homeworld." The sisters helped him try the strange foods. Some tasted like fruits he had never imagined. Others like vegetables, but with flavors that had no comparison on Earth. As they ate, the translator device worked better and better. Where are we? Marcus asked. Palace, Lyrale explained. We are, how you say, daughters of ruler. Marcus nearly choked on his food. You're princesses. Both sisters nodded. Zephyra giggled, a sound like silver bells. You not know. We find you. We help you. Father, allow us to keep you here. Keep me. Marcus felt a small worry. I'm not a pet. Lyrale looked embarrassed. No, wrong words. You're a guest, special. Guest. We never see your kind before. Over the next few days, Marcus learned more about the Valdrian Empire. The sisters took turns visiting him as he grew stronger. They were fascinated by everything about him and his stories of Earth. Your people have no advanced healing? Zephyra asked one afternoon. No ship that traveled between stars easy? Marcus shook his head. We're still learning. Our technology is much simpler than yours. We've only been traveling to other worlds for a few hundred years. But you travel so far, Lyrale said with wonder. With such simple ships, why? Marcus thought about it. Because we want to know what's out there. We want to explore, to learn, to find new things, even if it's dangerous. The sisters exchanged glances. Something in their expressions told Marcus that his answer was important somehow. Valdrian's not explore much, Lyrale admitted. We have everything we need. Why leave comfort for danger? Because, Marcus said, the best things in life usually come from taking risks. A few days later, the sisters took him on a tour of the palace. It was enormous, with rooms that changed their lighting and temperature as people walked through them. Gardens grew impossible plants that seemed to sing. Fountains flowed upward instead of down. In one room, Marcus saw a beautiful sculpture made of light and crystal. But there was something wrong with it. Parts of the light were flickering, and the colors were dull. What's wrong with it? Marcus asked. Broken, Zephyrus said sadly. For 3 cycles now, our best engineers cannot fix. They say need new parts from Homeworld, but supply ship not come for many cycles. Marcus studied the sculpture more carefully. Can I look at it? Lyrale looked surprised. You know art science? Not exactly, Marcus said, but I know about fixing things. He spent an hour examining the sculpture. The problem was not what the Valdrian engineers thought. It was not about missing parts. It was about energy flow. The system was perfectly designed. But to perfectly, there was no room for the small variations that made natural things beautiful. Marcus found a maintenance panel and began making small adjustments. He added tiny irregularities to the energy patterns, created small fluctuations in the timing. Suddenly, the sculpture blazed to life. The colors became rich and warm. The light danced in patterns more beautiful than before. Music filled the air, but it was not the perfect tones from before. It had character, emotion, life. A crowd of palace workers had gathered to watch. They stared in amazement at the sculpture. Then at Marcus. How? Lyrale whispered. Your engineers made it to perfect, Marcus explained. Perfect is not always beautiful. Sometimes the small imperfections are what makes something special. News of what Marcus had done spread quickly through the palace. Engineers came to ask him questions. Artists wanted to learn his technique. But what surprised Marcus most was how he was treated by the palace servants. Unlike the nobles and engineers, the servants seemed afraid to talk to him at first. When Marcus tried to thank a worker who cleaned his room, the alien looked shocked. Why? You thank Keevil? Lyrale asked when she heard about it. Because he helped me, Marcus said. Doesn't everyone deserve thanks for their work? Keevil is? Servant, Zephyrus said, as if that explained everything. Marcus realized that Valdrian society was very different from human society. The servants were treated like tools, not people. This bothered him greatly. From then on, Marcus made a point of talking to every servant he met. He learned their names, asked about their families, thanked them for their work. At first they were frightened, then confused. Then something wonderful happened. They began to smile. The change did not go unnoticed. Some nobles complained that Marcus was causing trouble by treating servants like equals. But Lyrale and Zephyrus were watching everything Marcus did with great interest. Your people treat all persons same? Lyrale asked one evening. We try to, Marcus said. Everyone has value. Everyone deserves respect, even if they're not smart or strong or important, especially then. Marcus said firmly. 1 month after his rescue, everything changed. A massive ship arrived at the palace, bearing the symbol of the Galactic Council. Representatives demanded an immediate meeting with the Emperor. Lyrale came to Marcus's room that night, looking worried. Council wants you, she said quietly. They say you must come with them for study, for classification. What does that mean? Marcus asked, though he had a bad feeling about it. They want to know if your people are dangerous, Zephyrus said. Joining them, they want to test you, maybe keep you. Marcus felt cold. And if I refuse? The sisters looked at each other sadly. You cannot refuse counsel, Lyrale whispered. But Marcus saw something else in their eyes. Determination, protectiveness. The same look he had seen when they first found him dying in the purple grass. We not let them. Take you easy, Zephyrus said quietly, for the first time since his rescue. Marcus realized that these two alien princesses cared about him as more than just a curiosity. They had become his friends, maybe more, and they were willing to fight for him. The first reports came in during breakfast. Marcus was sharing a meal with Lyrale and Zephyra when a palace guard rushed into the dining hall. The guard whispered urgently to Lyrale, who went pale beneath her silver skin. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked. "The growing fields," Zephyra said, her voice tight with worry. "Something is attacking our food crops." Within hours, reports flooded in from across the planet. A strange disease was spreading through the Valdrian agricultural systems. Plants that had grown strong for thousands of years were dying overnight. The disease moved faster than anything the Valdrians had ever seen. Marcus accompanied the sisters to the palace's science center, where the best minds in the empire were working on the problem. Massive screens showed images of dying crops from around the world. The numbers were frightening. 15% of all food production lost already, reported Chief Scientist Vexter. Disease adapts to every treatment we try. At this rate, we face starvation within 6 months. Emperor Zelther, father of the princesses, stood before the screens with a grim expression. He was tall like his daughters, but his silver skin had lines of age and worry. His blue eyes held the weight of responsibility for billions of lives. "What about the emergency food stores?" the emperor asked. "Enough for 3 months. Maybe 4 if we ration strictly," Vexter replied. Marcus studied the images on the screens. The disease pattern was familiar somehow, though he could not place where he had seen something like it before. "Has this happened before?" Marcus asked. Everyone turned to look at him. Some of the scientists seemed annoyed that an alien was asking questions. "Never," Vexter said coldly. "Our agricultural systems are perfect. This should be impossible." "Perfect systems can be fragile," Marcus said quietly. Vexter's expression darkened. "Your primitive people would not understand our advanced methods." Lyrale stepped forward. "Marcus fixed the quantum art when our engineers could not. Perhaps we should listen." For the next week, Marcus watched the Valdrian scientists work. Their approach was impressive but predictable. They used advanced scanning, created complex treatments, tried to fight the disease with pure technology. Every solution failed because the disease adapted faster than they could respond. Marcus requested permission to visit one of the affected farms. The sisters took him to a growing facility outside the capital city. The sight was heartbreaking. Rows of plants that should have been green and strong were brown and dying. The farm manager, an elderly Valdrian named Korth, showed them around with tears in his large blue eyes. "My family has managed this land for 8 generations, Korth said. "Never have we seen such destruction." Marcus knelt down and examined the soil. He picked up handfuls of earth, smelled it, looked at it closely. Then he asked a question that surprised everyone. "Do you have any areas where you don't grow food?" "Wild places." Korth looked confused. "Why would we waste good land on wild plants?" "Show me your wildest area," Marcus said. They walked to the edge of the farm, where a small patch of native plants grew. These plants looked different from the crops, more varied, more chaotic, and they were completely healthy. Marcus spent an hour studying the wild area. He found insects, fungi, different types of soil bacteria. The ecosystem was complex and messy, nothing like the clean, organized farm rows. "Your problem is not the disease," Marcus told them. "Your problem is that your crops are too uniform. They're all exactly the same, so when disease finds a way to attack one plant, it can attack them all." The Valdrian stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. "But uniformity is efficiency," Korth protested. "Same plants, same nutrients, same everything. Perfect system on Earth." "We learned that diversity is strength," Marcus explained. "Different plants help each other. Some insects eat harmful pests. Natural competition makes everything stronger." That evening, Marcus presented his ideas to the Emperor and the Science Council. His suggestions seemed simple, almost primitive. Plant different varieties together. Allow beneficial insects. Use natural fertilizers instead of artificial ones. Create spaces for wild plants between the crop rows. The scientists laughed. Barbaric methods. Vexler scoffed. We are thousands of years beyond such crude techniques. Those methods might work on your primitive world, another scientist added. But Valdris requires sophisticated solutions. But Marcus noticed that Emperor Zelther was listening carefully, and the princesses were watching him with growing admiration. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's pressure was increasing daily. Ambassador Nexus, a tall, cold being with gray skin and no visible emotions, demanded regular meetings with the Emperor. The human must be transferred to Council custody, Nexus insisted during one such meeting. His species shows signs of dangerous unpredictability. They must be properly evaluated before being allowed contact with civilized worlds. Marcus is our guest, Lyrale said firmly. He has done nothing wrong. He has disrupted your social order, Nexus replied. Your servants show signs of unrest because of his influence. He promotes dangerous ideas about equality and individual worth. Zephyra stepped forward, her usually gentle voice now strong with anger. Those ideas have made our people happier. Happiness is irrelevant, Nexus said. Order and stability matter. The human goes with us in 3 days, or we impose economic sanctions on your empire. That night, Marcus found himself walking in the palace gardens with both princesses. The alien flowers glowed softly in the darkness, and the 2 moons cast silver light on the pathways. We cannot let them take you, Lyrale said quietly. Your father has to think about his whole empire, Marcus replied. I'm just one person. No, Zephyra said, stopping to face him. You are not just one person. You are proof that there are other ways to live, other ways to think. Lyrale nodded. Before you came, we thought our way was the only way. Perfect order, perfect efficiency, perfect control. But you have shown us that imperfection can be beautiful, that chaos can create strength, that caring for others makes us stronger, not weaker. Marcus felt his heart racing. The way the princesses were looking at him was not just friendship or curiosity anymore. There was something deeper in their large blue eyes. You have changed us, Lyrale whispered. Both of us, Zephyra added. Marcus realized that he felt the same way. These 2 amazing beings had saved his life, and now they were saving his soul. The thought of being taken away from them, of never seeing them again, was unbearable. But their moment was interrupted by a palace guard running toward them. Princess Lyrale. Princess Zephyra. The guard called urgently. The Emperor commands your immediate presence. The human too. They hurried to the throne room, where Emperor Zelther sat with a face like carved stone. Ambassador Nexus stood beside him with a satisfied expression. The council's patience is ended. The Emperor announced, his voice heavy with regret, Marcus will be transferred to their custody tomorrow morning. Lyrale started to protest, but her father held up a hand. The decision is made, he said. I cannot risk the welfare of billions for one person, no matter how remarkable. As the guards escorted Marcus away, he saw tears in the princess's eyes. But he also saw something else, determination. The growing bond between them had become unbreakable, and Marcus had learned enough about human nature and Valdrian nature to know that this was far from over. Tomorrow would bring either surrender or revolution. Marcus spent his last night on Valdris staring out the window of his quarters. Tomorrow, the Galactic Council would take him away. He would probably never see Lyrale and Zephyra again. The thought made his chest tight with pain. Somewhere over the past months, his feelings for the 2 princesses had grown into something he had never experienced before. Love, not just for one of them, but for both. Their kindness, their curiosity, their growing understanding of what it meant to truly care for others. Everything about them had captured his heart, and now he would lose them forever. A soft knock at his door interrupted his sad thoughts. Lyrale and Zephyra entered quietly, their faces full of determination. We have a plan, Lyrale whispered. What kind of plan? Marcus asked. To save you, Zephyra said, and to save our world. Before they could explain, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Emergency lights flashed in the corridors. Guard voices could be heard shouting urgent orders. What's happening? Marcus asked. The sisters looked at each other with worry. The plague, Lyrale said. It must have gotten worse. They rushed to the science center, where chaos filled the halls. Scientists ran back and forth carrying data tablets and crystal devices. On the main screens, red warning symbols flashed over maps of the entire planet. Emperor Zelther stood in the center of it all, his face pale with shock. Chief Scientist Vexter was reporting in a voice full of panic. The disease has mutated again. Vexter said, it's now attacking the backup food storage systems. Our preserved foods are being destroyed. We have perhaps for weeks before complete starvation begins. What about the treatments? The Emperor demanded. All failed. The new mutation adapts faster than we can create countermeasures. Our technology cannot keep up. Ambassador Nexus appeared on a communication screen from his ship. His gray face showed the first emotion Marcus had ever seen from him, fear. This cannot happen. Nexus said, if Valdris falls, it will destabilize the entire sector. The Council demands immediate solutions. We have tried everything, the Emperor replied helplessly. Marcus stepped forward. Not everything. All eyes turned to him. Vexter's expression was angry. Your primitive methods are useless here. This requires advanced science. Your advanced science has failed, Marcus said calmly. Maybe it's time to try something different. Impossible. Vexter protested. We cannot waste time on backwards techniques when our people are dying. But Emperor Zelther held up his hand for silence. His blue eyes studied Marcus carefully. What exactly are you proposing? Marcus took a deep breath. This was his only chance. Give me one farming region. Let me try my methods. If they fail, you lose nothing you haven't already lost. If they work, they will not work, Vexter interrupted. Then prove it, Lyrali said suddenly. Let him try. What harm can it do now? The Emperor looked at the disaster reports on the screens. His empire was dying. His traditional methods had failed completely. Finally, he nodded. You have one region. He told Marcus. 3 days to show results. Ambassador Nexus's face darkened on the screen. This is wasting precious time. The human should be in our custody for proper study. The human stays until this crisis is resolved. The Emperor said firmly. For the first time, Marcus heard real authority in his voice. Within hours, Marcus was standing in a devastated farming region with Lyrale, Zephyra, and a team of confused Valdrian workers. The crops were completely dead, the soil sick and gray. First, Marcus said, we need to understand what the soil needs. He had the workers collect samples from the wild areas that were still healthy. Under his direction, they began mixing healthy soil with the sick farmland. It was dirty, manual work that the Valdrians found strange and uncomfortable. This is not scientific, complained one of the agricultural engineers. Science isn't just about complex technology, Marcus explained. Sometimes it's about understanding natural relationships. Next, Marcus had them plant different varieties of crops in mixed patterns instead of uniform rows. Some plants were chosen to attract beneficial insects. Others were selected to add nutrients to the soil. Still others were simply there to create diversity. The Valdrian workers thought he was crazy. They were used to perfect, organized systems. Marcus's approach looked messy and chaotic. Trust me, he told them. Nature knows how to heal itself if we give it the right help. Lyrale and Zephyra worked beside him, their royal hands getting dirty for the first time in their lives. Marcus taught them to identify helpful insects and to understand the signs of healthy soil. On Earth, Marcus explained as they worked, we learned that trying to control everything completely usually makes things worse. The strongest systems are the ones that can adapt and change, like people, Zephyra said thoughtfully. Exactly like people, Marcus agreed, smiling at her. On the second day, something amazing happened. Green shoots began appearing in the treated soil. The new plants looked stronger and healthier than anything the Valdrians had grown in years. By the third day, the transformation was incredible. The mixed crops were not only growing but actually fighting off the plague disease. The beneficial insects Marcus had introduced were eating the harmful pests. The diverse plants were helping each other in ways the Valdrians had never imagined. Word spread quickly. Other farmers began abandoning their failing modern methods and copying Marcus's techniques. Within a week, Healthy green growth was appearing across the planet. Chief Scientist Vexler arrived to see the results for himself. He walked through the flourishing fields with amazement, scanning everything with his crystal devices. The disease infection rate is dropping rapidly, he reported in a shocked voice. The soil quality is actually better than it was before the plague began. How is this possible? Because diversity creates strength, Marcus explained. When everything is exactly the same, one problem can destroy everything. When you have variety, the system can adapt and overcome. Emperor Zelther came to see the miracle himself. He walked through the healthy fields with his daughters, watching insects buzz among flowering plants, seeing farmers smile as they worked among abundant crops. You have saved our world, the emperor said to Marcus, his voice full of wonder. I just showed you what you already had, Marcus replied. Your people did the real work. That evening, as the three of them sat in the flourishing garden, Lyrale took Marcus's hand. You have taught us something more important than farming, she said softly. What's that? Marcus asked. That caring for each other, accepting differences, working together. These are not weaknesses, Zephyr said, taking his other hand. They are the source of all real strength. Marcus looked into their beautiful blue eyes and saw something that made his heart race. They loved him, both of them, and he loved them both in return. I don't want to leave you, he whispered. Then, don't, Lyrale said simply. The next morning, Ambassador Nexus returned to claim Marcus. But this time, he found Emperor Zelther waiting with a very different answer. Ambassador Nexus stepped off his ship with confidence. He had come to collect the human and complete his mission. Behind him walked 6 council guards in dark armor, their faces hidden behind energy shields. They expected no resistance from the grateful Valdrians. But as they entered the palace throne room, Nexus sensed something had changed. The Valdrian nobles stood differently. Their postures were straighter, their expressions more confident. Even the servants moved with new dignity. Emperor Zelther sat on his crystal throne with Lyrale and Zephyr standing on either side of him. Marcus stood between the princesses, no longer looking like a prisoner or even a guest. He looked like he belonged there. Ambassador, the emperor said calmly, thank you for your patience during our crisis. Your crisis is resolved, I trust, Nexus replied. Good. Now we can complete the transfer of the human to council custody. I'm afraid that will not be possible, Emperor Zelther said. Nexus's gray face showed surprise. Emperor, you cannot be serious. We had an agreement. Circumstances have changed, the emperor replied. Marcus has saved our entire civilization. He is no longer just a guest. He is now a citizen of Valdris, with full rights and protections. The council guards moved forward, but Emperor Zelther raised his hand. Palace guards appeared from every entrance, their advanced weapons ready. But more importantly, Nexus could see determination in their faces that had not been there before. You would risk war with the council over one primitive alien? Nexus demanded. We would defend any citizen of our empire, Lyrale said firmly. Even if that citizen has taught us things more valuable than all our technology, Zephyr added. Marcus stepped forward. Ambassador, may I ask you something? Nexus looked annoyed but nodded. What makes a species worthy of council membership? Advanced technology, stable government, proven ability to contribute to galactic civilization, Nexus recited. And what happens to species that don't meet those standards? They are monitored, contained if necessary, prevented from spreading dangerous ideas or technologies, Marcus nodded. And who decides what ideas are dangerous? The council, of course, even ideas that save entire worlds. Nexus hesitated. Round the throne room, Marcus could see Valdrian nobles listening carefully to every word. Your people value order and stability above all else. Marcus continued. But what happens when that order stops working? What happens when your perfect systems meet problems they weren't designed to handle? We adapt our systems, Nexus said, but his voice was less certain. Do you? Marcus asked. Or do you just try to control the problems until they disappear? Before Nexus could answer, Chief Scientist Vexler entered the throne room. The old scientist who had once mocked Marcus's ideas now carried a data crystal. With obvious excitement, Emperor Vexter announced, "The latest reports are remarkable. Not only have we stopped the plague, but our agricultural output is now 20% higher than before the crisis began. The humans' methods have made us stronger than we ever were." Nexus stared at the scientist. "Impossible. Primitive techniques cannot improve upon advanced systems." "That's what I thought too," Vexter admitted, "but I was wrong. Marcus has shown us that true advancement isn't about having the most complex technology. It's about understanding how to work with natural forces instead of trying to control them completely." Marcus saw his opening. "Ambassador, your council tries to maintain galactic stability by controlling everything. But what if there was a better way? What if diversity and adaptation made the galaxy stronger, not weaker?" "Chaos leads to war and suffering," Nexus replied. But he sounded like he was repeating old lessons rather than expressing real belief. "Look around you," Lyrali said. "Do you see chaos here? Or do you see a people who have discovered new strength?" For the first time since Marcus had met him, Ambassador Nexus seemed uncertain. He looked at the confident Valdrian faces, the obvious prosperity in the throne room, the clear happiness of people who had found new purpose. "Your people have changed," Nexus admitted. "Yes," Emperor Zelther said proudly. "They have remembered how to hope, how to try new things, how to care for each other as individuals rather than just as parts of a system." Marcus felt Lyrale and Zephyr move closer to him, one on each side. Their hands found his. Warm and reassuring. "Ambassador," Marcus said quietly, "humanity doesn't want to conquer or control anyone. We just want to explore, to learn, to share what we discover. We want to help others find their own strength, and we want to learn from them in return." Zephyra added, "The galaxy is vast," Lyrale said. "There's room for many different ways of living." Nexus was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "The Council will not be pleased with this development, then." "Perhaps," Emperor Zelther said calmly, "it is time for the Council to learn something new as well." That evening, Marcus walked through the palace gardens with Lyrale and Zephyra. The alien flowers seemed brighter than before, and the servants. They passed, smiled, and greeted them warmly. "So what happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now," Lyrale said, "you stay here with us. Father has officially named you Royal Advisor for External Relations and Royal Consort." Zephyra added with a shy smile. Marcus stopped walking and looked at both of them. "Consort to both of you. Valdrian marriage customs are different from human ones." Lyrale explained, "We don't see love as something that must be limited or controlled." "Are you sure?" Marcus asked. "This will change everything. Everything has already changed." Zephyra said softly, "You changed us. You changed our world. Now we want to change the galaxy together." 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of a Valdrian exploration ship. Through the viewport, he could see a small blue and green planet, Earth. Lyrale and Zephyr stood beside him, wearing the practical uniforms of diplomats rather than their royal gowns. Behind them, a team of Valdrian scientists and cultural experts prepared for humanity's first official contact with an advanced galactic civilization. "Are you nervous?" Lyrale asked. "A little," Marcus admitted. "My people can be intense." "Like you?" Zephyra teased. "Exactly like me," Marcus laughed. The communication officer announced that Earth had responded to their greeting. On the main screen, Marcus saw the face of Admiral Sarah Chen, his sister. "Marcus?" Sarah's voice was filled with disbelief and joy. "Marcus, is that really you? We thought you were dead." "Very much alive," Marcus replied, grinning, "and I have some people I'd like you to meet." As the first formal diplomatic contact between humanity and the Valdrian Empire began, Marcus reflected on the long journey that had brought him here. He had left Earth as a lone explorer and was returning as a bridge between worlds. The Galactic Council had eventually agreed to open formal relations with humanity, though Ambassador Nexus still seemed uncomfortable with the idea. Other council member species had begun expressing interest in these human methods. that had transformed the Valdrians, Marcus looked at his two beautiful wives and smiled. The galaxy was about to discover what one desperate human had learned in an alien palace, that the greatest strength came not from perfection or control, but from the courage to care, to adapt, and to never stop reaching for something better. Humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning.